Welcome to God's Grace in Real Estate, a storytelling podcast sharing stories of grace, faith, and the people who build our community. I'm Cindy Green, and each week we sit down with real estate professionals, business owners, community heroes, and everyday people who have walked through the powerful seasons and experienced God's grace in real ways. These conversations are real, raw, and rooted in purpose. Whether you're building a business, rebuilding your life, or searching for hope, you'll find encouragement here. Let's step into the stories that remind us of God's goodness, even in the middle of real life. Welcome, Trey. Thank you so much for being on my podcast, my first official podcast. Will you tell our audience who you are and what you do for a living?
Yeah. So my name is Trea Fullen, born and raised here in Huntersville, North Carolina, just north of Charlotte, Lake Norman area. I am a real estate agent. However, I would say I'm one of God's children that's called to be used in the battlefield of real estate to change lives. So big team leader, big recruiter for firms. Love the personal development side of stuff, and obviously now representing clients again too.
I love that. And don't forget, I like to call you my connector.
Yes.
I think you're the connector of the industry and all people. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. So how long have you been in the industry?
I got licensed in 2017.
Okay. And what did you do before?
All kinds of stuff. So baseball was my first love.
Okay.
That's what I grew up really having a passion for. Played through high school, college, coached for about 5 or 6 years out of a facility here in Cornelius, actually.
Okay.
And then I've always been in some sort of sales industry alongside of that. So I've done retail, I've done in-home sales, I've done remote sales, I've done security, I've worked at go-kart tracks. There's a laundry list on my resume, just kind of hopping around. I've sold sunglasses, but at the end of the day, I went to a mentor in 2016 to learn about the stock market. And first week he met me, he was like, you have to go get your real estate license. And I was burnt out on sales, kind of in a mode of trying to figure out, all right, what can I get excited about? Because when baseball was on the calendar, I wake up, I was ready to go.
Right.
And I don't know if I'll ever find something that quite replaces that fire, but something different came along when he said that. And it's just like, all right, go do this thing. And I'm glad I listened, because I thought it was just opening doors, driving around. And I was driving, 50, 60,000 miles a year in one of those sales jobs. And I was like, I don't want to do that. So I'm very blessed to have gotten into real estate and to found the parts of this industry that allow you to really pour into people. Because like I said, I love the personal development side of it. I love grabbing a person, helping them become the best version of themselves. And then by default, by like a symptom of that, their business, their life, their relationships all take off.
And I will vouch for that, right? You have been a huge blessing in my life. And that's one reason why I wanted you to be my first guest, because you show that through and through your personality, and your faith comes through that, where you genuinely want to help people, and I'm just the best version of them.
Oh, I appreciate that.
I can tell you that I know when we talked about when we met, we were doing a transaction together.
I don't even remember. I was thinking about that this morning. I was like, what house did we even sell together?
We sold, it was off of Town Quarry Road. It was a one story. Oh my gosh, what was the name of the road? It was in Harrisburg.
The solar panels? Did it have solar panels on it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I remember that house. Yep.
An older couple. Remember they wanted to take here's what I can tell you about it. Remember they wanted to take the oven? And I was like, no, you can't have the oven. It has to stay. Do you remember that?
I don't even remember that part of it. No.
That's the stuff I remember. I was like, no, they can't have their oven. Like, I need the oven in there for my clients.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy. Yeah, because ovens are typically considered like fixtures.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So so we met over that transaction, and then we kind of chatted on and off, right? And then
I think we became like Facebook friends, and I don't remember talking like that much at all till.
No, I just remember reaching out about EXP and then saying, okay, I think I want to learn a little bit more. You were never pushy. You were never a salesman. It was kind of like, this is what it is. And I just remember reaching out and having a conversation. And then we did a Zoom call not too long after that. And I was going through a very, very hard time in my life. And I just remember I was in the mountains and we were going through everything. And I just remember your faith and the way that you talk and the way that you spoke. I needed that more at that moment than you would ever know. Mm. And it kind of like brought that back of like, he's here. Like, God's here. He's got you. And now you probably have no clue about that, or you probably didn't even know what that was. But huge blessing.
Yeah. And that's what God does, right? He places people in our paths to encourage us, to lift us up, to, kind of give us the embrace that God can't physically give us. And that's what I love the most, honestly. It's I mean, even beyond the personal development side, it's like when someone comes to you and a lot of times you don't realize it. And they say, with tears in their eyes, hey, this is the impact that you've had on me. This is the impact you've had on my wife. Like there's nothing that replaces that.
Yeah, exactly. And for us to give it back, right? Mm-hmm. To give it back to people, the same thing, right? And to our clients. And you don't even know you're doing it, but in return, it's filling you up as well. Yep. And it kind of keeps us going.
Yeah, it fills your cup up, and the overflow is what, you allow to bless other people with.
Yeah, exactly. So I ask you, this is God's grace, right? And I asked you what your grace word was, and you said favor. Can you tell us a little bit about why God's favor on your life?
Oh man, I was kind of thinking about this too, leading up to this, because I think it's really cool that you have that as a topic. Like, hey, pick your grace word. And favor, like so many of them I can relate to. I'm like, can I pick all?
Yeah, no, right? Can we cover them all?
But favor, just because no matter where I've gone, no matter what situation I've been in, like God just shows up and opens doors. And you talk about being a connector of people, like especially in that realm, just by itself, the people that God's put me in touch with, and like the rooms I've been able to get into, it's surreal. I mean, and you can't do anything except for point up there and give them credit and glory for it.
Yeah. And he also gives that back to you, as far as, like I said, you are the connector, right? He gave you that skill and that gift. And there is no, I mean, it's like, it's like, you need to know this person and you need to know this person. And you're like, here. And I remember you introduced me to Mindy, and she was like, if Trey says I need to know somebody, I need to know them. Like there's no even question, right? You're just like, okay, here we go. And so as far as let's say the connector and the favor of that, has there ever been a situation or something you can go back and be like, man, by the grace of God, I connected those two and this happened, or like a certain circumstance or like a situation that you can remember? Maybe even was you, right? You was connecting with somebody.
Yeah, I'll tell you one, just because this kind of relates to a memory I have with you too at a conference. It's not necessarily a connector of people thing, but it's just like God showing like unbelievable favor, right? So when you came out to Vegas, EXPCon, remember we went out to Omnia, the club, right?
Yeah.
So that specific booth we were in is actually two booths, right? And it's like the biggest one in the club. It's in the back, looking straight on, like across the floor at the stage. And that, I'm pretty sure that booth rents out, like each side of it rents out for like 10 to 20 grand a night.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Like, it's insane. And so we had the hookup to go and hang out with some people that year.
Yeah.
So the last year that EXP did their conference in Vegas, they actually rented out that entire club for the like ending bash party.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So they had the whole club just shut down for us. And leading up to that, they were selling tables. So like everybody had free access to it if you were an attendee to the event. But if you wanted one of those tables, you had to book it and pay for it and all this stuff. So our team was as big as ever. And we probably brought, I think it was 40 or 50 team members, and then some of their family members, and people just all came out. We had a huge squad. And we didn't book a table. Like we didn't pay for that. We're just like, we're just going to go. We had done some other things for our team that week. We're just going to go. And we get to the club, get there pretty early. And there's these little like placards and name cards on these tables for the people that have reserved it.
Yeah.
And we're hanging out around the back one, and nobody's there. And there's this name on this table, but nobody's showing up. Nobody's going in there. We get closer and closer to, showtime. We're going to kick this thing off. And I'm like, nobody's showing up. We're going to take this thing over. So I'm standing there. We start taking it over. And like, we needed it. Like, it wasn't just like, hey, we want this cool spot. Like, we had so many people that was the spot that we needed.
Yeah.
And it just happened to be the best place in the club. Well, long story long, I go pull up Workplace, like the internal thing that we have with all our agents to connect.
Yeah.
And I pull up this name, and it was a deactivated account.
No.
Which means that table was reserved somehow under this name, whether they did it and then left the company, or, it was totally God though, reserving a table for us, for our team, for that night, and just had an incredible experience. Because that's what I love doing for people too, is being a connector of people, but providing an experience for them that allows them to have that paradigm shift that says, you know what, let me think bigger, or, getting a taste of what's possible, or just the potential that God, and the favor that God has for them in their life.
Yeah. And we can bring that back to real estate too, right? For our clients, whether you're taking them out to look at houses and they're trying to find that house, their dream house, right? To make their next move, to build their families. And sometimes it is opening the door and connecting those two things, right? And helping them through that process. Recently, actually, I haven't, in our industry, we talked about kind of going into more leadership role. And so being in the car and showing a little bit has kind of been not every day for us, right? And so I had the moment where I walked into a house. I was trying to find a house for my client, and I walked in and I'm like, this is her house. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna call her, right? And like, you call them like, okay, let's go see this house. And she walked in and she cried. And it's like that feeling, like I needed that as well as just a reminder of like what I'm doing and why I do it.
Yeah.
Right. So I thought it just helps. It helps bring it all back full circle.
Yeah. And you talk a full circle. I'll share a little story of something that's kind of happening right now. So there's a client that I just helped purchase his first investment property. It's really cool. And it's actually a fellow attendee of Elevation Church. So since my first transaction in real estate, I always give the donation to the charity that the client picks.
Yes.
Because that was always the thing. I was like, what am I going to do to separate myself from all these agents out there? So that was my thing. I decided on, I'm going to let the clients pick a charity. And every now and then, I'll do something in addition to that, like go host an event at that organization or do something a little extra. And this time around, he decided to pick Habitat for Humanity, which I've had the blessing to be very involved with through Elevation. Now I'm actually the liaison between Elevation Church and awesome. Habitat for all of our outreach events. Okay. And he picks Habitat. So I'm like, all right, this is cool. Well, we have a build coming up in Statesville this spring, starting a new property. And I was able to earmark that donation from that closing to that property. And then he's going to come out this spring to one of our events when we're actually working on that house. So it'll be a complete full circle moment where God, connected two people. We were able to help him get an investment property. It goes to donate towards, a cool charity, but also one that we do outreach with. And then we're going to be hands-on, driving nails into the foundation of that property. So
that's amazing.
Super cool.
That is so cool. And when you talked about the charity, that's another thing I remembered about our transaction that we did. Was I think I gave that to that charity with you. I think that was one of the phone calls we had. And we had a quick conversation that day. That was one of the reasons why I called you.
That makes sense. Because I'll usually call, anyone who's involved with the transaction. I'll call the attorney, I'll call the lender, I'll call the other agent, and say, hey, look, no pressure, but this is what I do. And here's the charity. If you want to get involved, I don't handle the money, but, write your check, do your thing. So,
yeah, very, very cool. That's awesome. So how does your faith shape how you lead or serve people in business?
Yeah. So there's this verse that I just came across a couple of weeks ago, and I don't know how it hasn't jumped out at me before. And I'm gonna pull it up this way I go to my phone. But Jesus came to serve, right? And so I've always looked at it as a place coming from a place of serving. Whether it's working with clients, whether it's working with agents, whether it's working with potential business partners, whatever it is. If you show up and you contribute to the table, there's going to be opportunity for you. Everybody's going to eat together. Yep. And that's the beautiful thing about real estate is, people will approach a lot of business and even in our industry as a zero-sum game where, hey, Cindy, if you win, that means I automatically lose by default. And that's not the way this works. Everybody can share and win in that together. So it's Acts 4:32.
Okay.
So all the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. And God's grace was so powerfully at work in all of them that there were no needy persons among them. From time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone who had need. And that's just showing that, this thing we call real estate is really just all God's creation, right? And we're just blessed to be a part of that. Even the material things on earth that man created, we don't really own any of this stuff. We have to give all that credit back. And so God blesses his people when you show up and you serve and you come from that place, everything gets taken care of. He provides.
Exactly. And it's not like you just said, it's not all about just us in a transaction, right? We're both out serving the communities as well. And we're showing up and helping. So we serve in other ways. That's amazing. So, okay. So now that you read that, I have to ask, what is your word of the year?
I heard from a little birdie. We have the same one actually. So it's grace.
Yes. Well, mine is moving forward in grace,
Okay.
and moving forward, right? And
Mhm.
trusting that, and trusting God is going to grace us and hold us.
Yeah.
Um,
Mine was going to be redeemed. And I was like 90% in on it. And it kind of popped up a couple times. And I thought God was kind of speaking that word to me at the end of the year. And then maybe 2 or 3 days before New Year's, like grace just showed up. And I was like, this is the word, because redemption is kind of something that you get because of grace, right? Because redeemed is like God getting you out of a situation that you couldn't get yourself out of.
right.
But how did that happen? Well, that happened because of grace, because grace is getting what you don't deserve, right? And mercy is not getting what you do deserve. And so I was like, all right, grace is absolutely the word,
Right.
But the God of all grace, right? Because all grace gets attributed back to him.
Yes. That's amazing. Have you ever felt God protecting you from an opportunity that looked good on paper?
Yeah, I'll talk about a door getting slammed shut. So one of the things I did in sales was I sold solar, and that was the job where I would run 50, 60,000 miles a year, driving to people's houses, selling, and at the kitchen table. And it was, I'm not leaving until you sign this contract. Yeah. I've actually had guns pulled on me.
Oh my gosh.
Like, I've got some wild stories from the solar days.
Oh, I haven't heard those.
But when I got licensed in real estate, as I'm building the business, I'm like, okay, let's make a little side cash. And I went back to that company, and I was like, supposed to do some internal training and some little projects. And that turned into me like kind of identifying an opportunity to build an inside sales team. So selling solar instead of at the kitchen table, doing it over a Zoom call. And this was a couple years before, the pandemic and all that stuff. So people, like, our biggest hurdle with that was getting people to believe we weren't hacking their computer. I was like, I just want to share my screen with you.
Yeah.
And so for about a year, maybe even a year and a half, I had taken pretty much all my focus off of real estate and poured it into building that. And we built an inside sales team that was doing phenomenal with this. And the writing was on the wall, but I say out of the blue, the company shut down.
Oh, wow.
The business to this day still owes me, several $1,000s into the 5 figures for sure. And money I'll never see. But it was completely God saying, look, yes, you could go with this opportunity, but I'm going to step in, I'm going to shut this door and, replant you back where you need your focus to be.
Isn't that crazy?
And that's the time where, I refocused, went back all in real estate. That was when, because I started at Keller Williams.
Yeah.
That was about the time that I made the move to EXP.
Okay.
So that kind of started the trajectory of what's all been,
and where you are now.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how he pulls us back, right? Pulls us back to our path.
Mm-hmm.
Even we may get sideways sometimes, or even we might be on the path and we're frustrated and tired and wondering why.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, you've put me here. Well, why is it so hard?
Yeah. Well, how many times did God answer the question why in the Bible? Not very many.
No. It's trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's trust and having the faith that it's all going to work out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think those situations are really what builds our trust. When you get put in a position where you're uncomfortable and you're uncertain, that's where God really grows us. Even look back, to Abraham, he says, go to the land that I will show you. He doesn't say, hey, here's the land and go, and gives you the roadmap. I talked about commitment comes before opportunity all the time. And this past year, our pastor has been talking about details follow obedience.
Yes.
And that's the way you have to live. You have to take that step on blind faith, and then everything starts to get revealed to you.
And I am learning that lesson, right? Even just doing this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, go do this podcast. Well, how am I supposed to do that? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it just take the first step,
mm-hmm.
and then I will show you the rest.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also, faith is blind.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some people are like, well, how do you have the faith? Because I trust him and I know that he's going to have it. But faith is blind.
Yeah. And that's where we have to look back and just look at the favor, right?
Yeah.
The word I picked. Look at the favor. Remember all the things that he's done. All the times he's came through, all the ways that he's made, and just be thankful for that, and that's one of the big things my mentor that got me into real estate, shift my mind on with prayer is like, pray from a place of gratitude, and confidence in God and what he's going to do, even if it's not exactly, because it almost never is, right? Exactly how we think it's going to happen. I love what Pastor said too. He said, hold on to the promise, but let go of the plan, right? So have faith in what God is doing through you, but let go of wanting to know the details, let go of how you think it should happen, and just go.
The next steps, right? Let it unfold. Take one step at a time. And that's so hard sometimes for us to let go of the control. And that probably should have been my word. for the year
Surrender.
is surrender it, right? I know you have it. And I'm trying very, very hard of letting it go and taking it one day at a time and taking the next step and letting it unfold for his glory and for what he wants versus what I think, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. The surrender is I think the hardest part of all of it is completely letting go and putting it at God's feet. And not just, is this deal going to close, God? Am I going to have the check to pay the rent or do whatever, right? Or get to buy the thing I want.
Right.
It's surrendering, the hard things, the hardest things that you have in your life that you want that control over. Because I think for most of us, we are willing to surrender to God, except for that one thing, except for that, that one situation, that one place. It's like, no, I'm gonna let go of everything except for this. You can't have this one, God. And that's what he'll work on. And, we want that next step. We want that next opportunity. We want that next detail shown to us. But until we surrender it all, he's not necessarily going to give it to us.
I could probably give you a whole story about that from last year. I'm a real estate agent and I was trying to sell my house and I went through 3 buyers and like 10 extensions. And I needed, like you wanted it to just happen. You wanted it to happen. And it finally was like, let it go. I've got it. Right. Let it go. Timing. Right. The right buyer came at the right time, but it's surrendering it all.
And that's where you find the peace too.
Yes.
The peace we're searching for so much is found as soon as you let go. Like we're trying to control it so we can have peace. And really the surrender is what brings the peace.
When you say it's yours and I'm not going to control it and I'm going to let you have it and I am going to listen, you don't have that worry and that anxiety, because as soon as you try to take it over again, that anxiety and that worry and that thing, it comes back. It comes back just like that.
Well, when you're holding on to it, when you're the one trying to carry it, it's now your job to sustain that. And it's only like when, it's not if, right? When we're going to crumble under that weight. And when you just surrender it to God, it's his to carry and it's his to sustain, and he will not sell.
He will not. He will be right there to hold you and pick you back up. That is for sure.
Yeah.
How does your grace word favor still carry you forward today?
Oh man. So my grace word favor carries me forward today, just in the rebuild process, right? So, growing to the success level that I did, being, top 50 in the world inside of one of the fastest growing firms to ever exist in our industry, having a massive team across 3 different countries, building into a leadership position to get out of production and be able to do more stuff. And then starting back over and rebuilding that at a new firm, which I believe God totally has worked some massive blessings through that to plant me at LPT, to put me in an even bigger opportunity. That's where I see the favor show up. It's like, hey, I may not be doing the same things that I was doing at that particular level, but God's working and showing me favor every step of the way. And really grace, right? And I think that's what he's worked on me a lot is like the first thing was surrender for me. It's like, hey, surrender all this to me. But then the next level of that was having grace. And I don't think just having a perception of the grace that God provides, but like learning to give myself grace. Like, hey, look, stop comparing the beginning of this journey to the end of the last one. And really just kind of just walking out every single day and seeing, okay, where else can God show favor? Not just in business, right? So with my spiritual walk with him, my relationship with God better than ever, the opportunities that I've had at Elevation Church and really getting involved there, the people that I've been able to connect with, that I would have never, ever had the opportunity to if I was always laser focused on business and what's the next opportunity, or, hey, how can I find a way to connect these things to get another business opportunity to come forward? And so I see favor just starting to permeate into areas of my life outside of real estate today more than ever.
I feel the same way. A question to you, though, is this. How was your faith when you first started, let's say, with EXP, and you built that huge team and all of that? Do you think you were rooted in faith and you were growing up with God then? Or do you think sometimes he strips us to rebuild it on the grounds for him? Because right now, that's what I feel like I'm having to rebuild all of this, but I'm doing it in his favor in his time versus how I did it last.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to roll with your building word there. When you build, you build with stones, right?
Yeah.
And there is this guy named Jesus who is the stone that the builders rejected, right? Who will become the cornerstone. That is totally how God's like spoken and shown me to do it this time. So
Yeah.
the first time around, I've always been a believer, right? Like
Yeah.
I was saved very young, grew up in church, had a push away from that once I got to like high school age.
Yeah.
Like, hey, if I can stay home on Sunday, I'm gonna stay home.
I think our stories are kind of similar in that. Yeah.
Just ego,
Yeah.
being a teenager. And then got into college. That led to me like reading the Bible a little bit more, building a more personal relationship with God, which led to watching pastors that I did feel I connected with online, and then ultimately like Elevation. In 2024, like when I first started going in person to Elevation, that was the first Sunday I'd ever said, you know what, I'm going to wake up on a Sunday and go to church because I want to.
Right.
So it was kind of a growth journey in that first side where I believed and I was growing in that faith. And like, even when we would have like team meetings or I was coaching an individual, like I would be teaching them business, but bringing God into that conversation. And so I did it with God, but not with God as the number one priority. He was a stone in the foundation, but he wasn't the cornerstone. And so he stripped all that to be able to show me like, look, you have to build this on me. And then I will bless the other things, but make me the priority as you build it this time around. Make the kingdom the priority. Like, talk about recruiting. God slapped me in the face and said, you're recruiting all these real estate agents. What about recruiting the people for the kingdom? And that's actually a really cool story too, was, this
100%.
past year, I never walked someone through like a salvation prayer. And I don't know, like there's probably people that like I've been a light to and they've gotten closer to God and maybe got saved because of that.
Yeah.
And I may never know. Last year, it was an Uber driver. I got a good buddy of mine in Raleigh who's an evangelist, a super cool guy, Doug Elks. Shout out Dougie. But he's that guy. Like if he's sitting next to you on an airplane, if he's in a car with you in an Uber, like you're coming to Christ if you have
whether you like it or not.
Before the plane lands, he's going to land the plane, right? And that had a really big influence on me. I'm like, okay, I'm hearing this from God. I'm seeing kind of an example of how that's done. And I'm in an Uber and I'm talking to this guy about girls. He's like, I'm looking for my wife. And I'm like, tell me about who you're looking for. And he starts like naming off all this stuff. Right. And so I started talking to him about like the story of Jacob and Rachel. I'm like, look, just be patient, whatever it is, just, be patient with it. And I just asked him straight up, has anybody ever talked to you about Jesus? And he's like, no. And that's surprising to me. I think we overestimate the amount of people, especially here in America, who have been told about Jesus. And they may have heard the name, but they don't know anything about him.
They don't know. Yeah.
And by the end of that Uber drive, like I'm crying, holding his hand. We're saying the salvation prayer. And I went into the hotel room when he dropped me off and I just bawled my eyes out for 20, 30 minutes. And I think the biggest realization or revelation I had during that was it was all worth it. Like every high and especially every low I'd ever been through would have been worth it if it was just to save like this one guy. And that's the grace. That's the favor that God shows, right? He'll chase us down.
That's amazing.
So I listened and I was like, all right, we'll do some of that recruiting. And I think that's really cool to just see how God has used every little thing. Cause I've seen that in business where like, hey, he used this thing I learned at the go-kart track. He used this thing I learned in security. He used this thing I learned at this one sales job to like kind of put it all together from baseball, from coaching. And then now he's kind of showing me, hey, we can do this another way too.
Right. And I think he does that in professional relationships, personal relationships as well, right? We learn lessons as we go and as we meet people when people come in and out of seasons, right? But we're learning from them to grow. Yep. Do you think it's hard sometimes to, what I'm finding in, I don't think just in our industry, but in a lot of places, that a lot of people will not put their faith within their business. I've had several conversations where people are like, I'm a secret agent or I'm a secret this. I feel like I have to split the two. And I think that's one where I've turned that corner of no, there's no splitting. This is me. This is how I'm running my business. This is how I'm running our team. Yep. And now it's out. Like when I interview somebody, this is it. This is what we're doing, right? We are a spiritual based team that we're out for the kingdom, right? We're out doing our job to serve people. But do you feel sometimes people, have you seen that? Have you heard that of like people that just are scared to be both?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially in the day and age we live in, right? Where social media, the internet, people have opinions, they'll dog you in a minute, right? Cancel culture, all this stuff. And especially in an industry like real estate where, we have laws where you can't discriminate against religion. So people will use that as like the scapegoat or the excuse as to why they won't be bold in their faith. But I think authenticity is the number one thing that will actually help someone grow their business in general. Like whether it's faith related or not, just be you, be genuine.
Yeah.
And people can pick up on it. They've actually done studies. They put people in rooms and they measured this in frequencies. Like the most powerful frequency the human body is capable of emitting is the frequency of authenticity, which means the words that are coming out of your mouth are true and you believe them yourself, right? So if both of those things are happening, you are being authentic, and people can pick that up if you're being authentic, and they can smell it too if you're not. And so that will help people connect. That will help people find their tribe. That'll help people really like, you can walk into an appointment, know nothing about selling real estate, but if you connect with that person authentically, like, this is my dude, this is my chick, I'm gonna work with this person.
Yeah.
But especially when it comes to faith and doing what God's asked us to do, because if you deny him in front of man,
we're not doing it.
You're in hot water, right? So I think at the end of the day, if you allow something of this world to prevent you from professing your faith, you're just turning your back on God.
I agree 100%.
And there's no deal, there's no there's no client base that's worth it. I'll put it to you this way: there's a person I'm connected with now, a really cool dude. He runs a super big social media page, and I mean millions of followers, and he built this in months, and like a couple years ago, and then he got some copyright claims and the whole thing got shut down.
Oh wow.
And accounts shut down. He didn't have access to them anymore, couldn't do anything. Well, then he rebuilt it actually just this past year in May. He restarted those channels, those accounts, and regrew it again. Like by the end of the summer, had over 1 million followers. And he's in this position right now where he's trying to figure out, do I continue to just put positive content out that's relating to these people? Because he's having people like DM him and, hey, I was going to take my own life today, but I saw your post and this like really like huge impact. But he's stuck between, do I keep doing this thing and growing this, or do I lean into what I'm feeling convicted to do, which is share more about God, be more professive of my faith. And I just asked him, I'm like, straight up, hey, dude, if you lost all 2 million followers, but one person got saved that would have otherwise not been saved, would it be worth it? That's my favorite question to ask at the closing table. Hey, is it worth it?
Yeah.
If it's worth it, because that's the question they're going to ask at the end of the day. And he said, yeah, it would be. So I think that's really the key, is like, there's nothing worth losing God over.
No, I don't. Yeah, I agree. And I think that goes back to how I've kind of seen it recently, of like kind of rebuilding that business of him being the structure of it and being number one, right? Mm-hmm. And building it with him versus trying to do it all by myself and trying to take control.
Yep.
So, and I always say your people are going to find you.
Mm-hmm.
If they're not your people, they're not your people, right? Mm-hmm. And if you can't love me for me, then we're not supposed to be together.
And maybe all these opportunities, all these people that you've been looking for, again, kind of back to that surrender, like God's just waiting on you to put them first and get out there about it. And then those opportunities will show up.
Find you.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Sheree, it has been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. If people want to find you on Instagram or Facebook anyway, how can they find you and get in contact with you?
Super simple. At Trea Fullen on everything. TREA.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you again for being on my first podcast.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
If this story encouraged you, please share it with someone who needs a reminder of God's grace. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with our community for more stories of faith, purpose, and the people who build our community. Until next time, may grace cover your steps, your home, and your journey.